Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, our friends all around the globe. Welcome to the Feedbackly and Zendesk joint webinar. We have been excited about this webinar already for weeks, if not months. I hope that the audience, you as well, are as excited as we are, because today we're talking about the new standard in CX, measuring customer emotions. So something that's very close to Feedbackly as well as Zendesk's heart. And let's jump quickly further to housekeeping. And I'm Eveli Kaasiku. I am your host today. And at my everyday work, I am CMO at Feedbackly. And today we have two wonderful presenters, speakers from Feedbackly and Zendesk. We have Kristian Stolt, COO of Feedbackly, and Robert Wiesemborski from Zendesk, Customer Success Manager from Zendesk. So hello, Robert and Kristian as well.
Hey.
Hello. And I know that we have always a very global audience, and today as well we have people at least registered from all around the world, and we are always excited to see that where is our audience coming from. So where is our audience coming from today? I am sending greetings from Finland, and where are you sending us greetings from? Write us on chat. So hi Romina, greetings back to Spain. And greetings back to Copenhagen, England, New York. Wow, all across the ocean as well. Nice to see. And Robert, where are you sending us greetings from?
Yeah, like Joseph, I'm actually also based in Copenhagen. I'm originally German, but moved to Copenhagen, I think, almost 9 years ago. So that's
nice.
At the moment.
All right, nice. And Kristian, well, greetings to Finland. You're in Finland, right?
Sunny Helsinki, Finland. Here we are.
Nice. Here we are. So here we are. Let's get started then. And quickly before the presentations, I would mention that whenever you have questions, then please write your questions also in the chat. You just right now already practiced a little bit how to do it, how to use the chat, right? So all the questions straight to the same place, to the chat. And I will take questions after presentations. I will take 1-2 questions maybe after Robert's presentation, and then all the rest of it after Kristian's presentation. And also, just a reminder that this webinar is recorded so that you can share it also with your colleagues afterward, and all of you will receive a recording of this webinar over email afterward. And slides will also be shared, so no worries about this as well. And yeah, I think that we are ready to get started. Super excited to have our great speakers here. And the first one who will start presenting and talking about measuring customer sentiment and emotions is Robert. Robert, Customer Success Manager at Zendesk, as I said. And in that role, he's responsible for ensuring that his customers have great experience working with Zendesk, as well as supporting his customers to create smooth and seamless CX for their end clients. And I would give it straight to you now, Robert. So I will stop sharing my screen, and feel free to say a couple of words about yourself, and excited to hear more about the topic then.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emily. So as you said, I'm Customer Success Manager at Zendesk, working mostly with clients in the Nordic region, so Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Iceland, of course, Finland. And if I'm not doing webinars with you guys, I'm working closely with our customers to ensure that they get the most value out of Zendesk, that they use Zendesk to create a great customer experience for their customers. And that is my daily role. And in that role, part of that role obviously also requires that I stay up to date with current trends and developments within CX, within customer service. And when looking at those trends, regardless of if it's customer satisfaction, customer well-being, or other trends, what I like to do is to understand what differentiates the top performers, what differentiates the champions from the rest, from the average, maybe the baseline. So when looking at the topic of customer well-being, customer satisfaction, I want to look at what is the baseline, and specifically looking at customer well-being, customer satisfaction. I think it becomes evident that most CS leaders, most organizations, most companies nowadays, they have a feeling for their customer well-being. They start tracking the satisfaction. They try to actively improve their experience for the customers. So I think this is pretty much the norm nowadays. And if you haven't started looking into that yet, I can only encourage you to start doing that. It will give you great insights for your team if you're working in customer service, but it also gives you great insights for your whole organization. So the next step to that is contextualize the feedback you receive from your customers. And that's also where organizations and companies already start to struggle a bit. And when I say contextualize, I mean that you put your customer well-being, your customer satisfaction in context with other relevant KPIs and metrics. That could be, for example, performance KPIs such as first reply time, resolution time, number of agents working on a customer request. But also it could be looking into your different offerings, your different services, different request types you get, or even compare how different groups and departments perform. And the goal here is really to understand what is working well and what isn't, because that will help you to evaluate where you have to take measures. For example, maybe train your agents in specific areas, or create self-service content, or maybe optimize processes and workflows for specific areas where you interact with your customers. But what we would like to focus on today in this webinar is the next step, and something that can set you apart from your competition at the moment, and that is understanding customer emotions and using that information to really shape your customer journey. And when I say it is an opportunity right now, I really mean that, because up to 80% of all CS leaders indicated that they are planning to start tracking customer emotions within the next 12 months. So what we try to do in this webinar is to kind of give you some insights into how you can utilize customer sentimental data to really create a great customer experience. You might wonder, why is it important to track customers' emotions? And given that roughly 20% of all interactions with a customer service team or with an organization leads to upset customers, I think it shows that companies still fail to recognize the ramifications of a bad or a negative experience. It's not only one upset customer, it's actually a damage to your brand. And the main issue here is that CS leaders, they don't really have a pulse on what are the customers' feelings, because there's no formalized way of gathering those data points. So what I will focus on is how you can track and measure customers' emotions while or before interacting with your team, and Kristian from Feedbackly will focus on how you can analyze it afterwards. And actually the entrance barrier to get started with this is not as high as you might think, because there are a lot of the-box solutions such as Zendesk or Feedbackly. Those solutions are based on AI that help you to predict the customer intent and sentiment. And basically, by enriching the request that you get, the question from your customers with those informations, you on the one side, you can take automated actions, you can make strategic decisions of how you want to approach those requests, but also on the other hand, you give your agents valuable insights that they can use to show empathy, to personalize the experience, and also be more efficient. And let's have a look at maybe like a real case example. So here we have Josh reaching out and wondering where his order is. So as you can see, the intent is recognized, the language and the sentiment as well. And then you can use this information to, for example, route or prioritize a ticket. In this case, it would probably make sense to route to maybe a more experienced agent because of the sentiment, and somebody that has insights or access to your order management system. Looking at the negative cases is obviously one side of it, but also you can look at it from the other side. If you have a customer that is very enthusiastic or very happy about your service, you can then match them with a maybe more commercially minded employee, and position maybe other offerings and services you offer, and that way upsell to your customers that are already have a positive association with your brand. Besides prioritizing and routing tickets, you can support your agents with sentiment data to personalize conversations. Basically, from the start, your agents can use the information to personalize the experience the customer has with your brand. And the next step to that would be to help your agents understand what is the next best action. So that could be, for example, a suggested help center article that will help the customer to solve the issue. That could be a text template, or even down to a specific phrase or a quote that the agent should use in the reply to the customer. And this part of using AI in your customer service will even be more enhanced down the road. So when looking at other things to come, for example, giving your agent a summary of the ticket so far of the email thread, maybe giving them the most important information with the intent and sentiment will help to be more efficient, or maybe expand an answer by the agent so they find the right tone of voice to address the customer's need. So that's just some of the examples where you can use the customer's emotions to on the one side be more efficient, but on the other side also to provide a better customer experience. So to kind of summarize my part and also to highlight what are the benefits for your organization. I think considering the current macroeconomic situation, customer retention is more important than ever. And having a great customer experience will obviously help with that. As I said, by using the customer sentiment data, you can help providing a great customer experience, helping your customer retention. As I mentioned, obviously always looking at one side, the negative examples where you try to avoid damage to your brand. You can also look at from the other side. You can actually use it to be a revenue center and engage with customers that are happy with your and satisfied with your service, to position other services that you have. And then the aspect that I really want to highlight at is the employee experience. On the one side, as I said, you can use it to route tickets to the right agent. What I mean by that is, for example, if you have a new agent joining your team, maybe with less experience, maybe it's not the best idea to match them with a very upset customer. And that way you avoid friction and to overwhelm your agents. The same goes if you have specialized agents in your team. You don't want to match them with customers that ask about other areas. So in that case, also the employees obviously benefit from it. They have the information to provide a personal experience, and they don't feel overwhelmed because they only talk to customers that they are equipped to talk to. And then I think the last but not least, low maintenance. As I said, there are out-of-the-box solutions that are learning over time, so it will be adjusted depending on your needs. But the entrance barrier is low, and also the maintenance of it is low compared to the benefits and the value you get out of it. So while my part focused on recognizing the customer emotion while engaging with your team, Kristian will now share some great insights into how to analyze your data to reveal how customer emotions impact your business.
Very nice. Thanks, Robert. It sounds very interesting. And the customer sentiment analysis and automations and AI, of course, is a hot topic nowadays. And by the way, before we jump to, while Kristian is setting up his slides, then actually I would take a question that Yuli just asked here in between, that chatbot is very popularly used for customer service nowadays, but however, how to measure CX using chatbot.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah. I mean, what basically you can use similar metrics that you use when using a human touch as well for a chatbot. You can look at what is the resolution rate, you can also ask if the chatbot was able to provide you with the answer you needed. So you can ask the customers for feedback and use that to fine tune your chatbot. Obviously, it's difficult to compare a human touch with not human touch, but I think understanding how are your customers engaging with the chatbot in the first place, looking at how much traffic you have on the chatbot compared to maybe your other channels to see, maybe make it a bit more appealing to use your chatbot. And then once they interact, how efficient is your bot at solving those questions? And then also, because there's such a wide range of things the chatbot can do, right? From answering simple repetitive questions that are pretty generic, all the way up to be very specific, where they can be integrated with your backend system, get information from there, and then play them back to your customers, right? So I think for you, it's really important to understand what you want to achieve with your chatbot, and then define KPIs and metrics that match your business goals, and then track. And I mean, with everything you do, it's a bit of try and error. So you always have to start using it in some way, look at the data you get, the feedback you get, the response you get, and then adjust it based on that.
Very good. And I think that this we will dig deeper into this all customer sentiment and chatbot side as well after Kristian's presentation. Then we have still enough time for more Q&A, but that was actually a very nice bridge to Kristian's presentation as well. And Kristian will now talk more about one specific KPI, for example, and how to measure customer emotions with the help of customer feedback, specifically given by customers then. So Kristian, the stage is yours.
Yes, thank you, Evelyn, and thank you also, Robert, for a really, really interesting presentation around what Zendesk is doing and how to really capture those emotions. I will, of course, continue on the same topic. The angle will be a bit different, of course. We're going to talk about the KPI on how to measure emotions in a structured way called Emotional Value Index. And kind of like building on the narrative as well that Robert just mentioned about the growing needs of understanding emotions. That will be the key moving forward. But kind of like what has essentially led to this is of course that the purchasing and use of service has changed over time. And while we're moving more and more into kind of like a journey-based approach, everyone attending this webinar has probably heard about customer journeys at some point in time, whether it's B2B, B2C, or something else. And the need to really understand also what happens before initial contact, let's say with the customer service team that Robert provided an example for. So understanding the impacts and the emotions you awaken with your brand in different parts of the customer journey will be key in understanding how to generate more value for your customers as well. Robert, I wrote down a number that 22% of leaders are currently looking into on how to measure emotions, how to understand emotions, the behavior, and what impacts what in the day-to-day business. And I'm happy to hear that, because the numbers that we've been using lately is that 90% of companies measure about 10% of what matters. And so that we're seeing a growth in understanding the emotions is, of course, the future and a trend. Well, let's not call it a trend, let's call it a reality and something you need to be a part of. I brought up here the good old Net Promoter Score, which is usually something everyone understands, has heard about, has replied to NPS surveys, etc. And I will kind of like draw some parallels to NPS in the upcoming minutes now to understand why it's important to also expand kind of the understanding from specific touch point specific KPI to a more broader, more holistic view on what's going on in your journey along the way. So I mentioned in the beginning that emotional value index, which is like the name says, it's to understand what emotions you awaken with your customers in specific parts of the journey. Emotions are one thing, but of course you need to understand what emotions lead to what kind of outcomes and what kind of insight you can take. And because emotions is a pretty complex thing, and we know that different cultures have different types of emotions that you show. How can you structuralize that? How can you measure emotions in order to generate some insight on what you should do next from your customer's point of view? Well, you need to clusterize it. You need to understand that specific emotions that you measure and in a structured way with EVI, they also belong to different types of clusters. And this is what EVI is kind of like all about. You need to understand that, okay, what kind of emotions do you want to drive? What clusters do they belong to? Because different clusters will help you take different actions, like Robert mentioned previously. Because if you can get structured data, you can kind of like clusterize all your data. You can also create playbooks. You can also create actions of what you need to do next based on what the customer tells you, what kind of emotion they have. Not going into all of the details on how the values for the different clusters are built, but EVI is basically works a lot in a similar fashion to NPS. So it's easy to understand. You get a score between -100 and 100. And based on that, essentially, you understand where the majority of your customers are, in which clusters, in which part of the journey. So why do we talk about EVI? Why do we take on such a complex topic as emotions? Because our research, our data that we've been collecting and our customers are collecting, and brands that are using EVI, we can see direct impact. We can see impact into conversions. We can see impact into basket sizes, meaning how much consumers or customers actually end up buying. And whereas NPS falls a bit short on the same topic, because if you think about it, when we talk about recommending a brand, which is usually kind of like the idea with NPS, that you get a score that would then describe the level of loyalty a specific segment or a specific customer has towards your brand. The problem is that when NPS is measured, it's so skewed towards the end or towards transactional touch points in your journey, you can't really get the full picture of what has happened before. It becomes unreliable, and there's also the time impact that you can't really trust NPS over time, because you kind of like are skewing the data towards the end. EVI takes kind of like care of this problem because EVI is designed both on a tactical and a strategic level to be able to cover the whole customer journey. So you can and you should measure it from pre-purchase phases to post-purchase to everything that happens after initial sale, loyalty and advocacy phases. So it's the same KPI, and you get that comparability on how that overall score changes over time, but also how the emotion for specific segments and drilling down to specific individuals, you can understand what emotions you're awakening at what point in the journey, and then of course comparing to what you would like to awaken. That's the key there, to understand that how are we actually faring compared to what is expected. Emotions are not linear either. So kind of like you can say that, in a sense, you can say that one emotion is better than another. But the key there is to understand that when emotions are not linear, that's where the cluster model comes into place. And it also helps you understand that negative emotions might not always be the case, because the more you have what Robert also called contextual data, so you want to contextualize the emotions, the more you understand that there's kind of like the reason on okay, specific kind of emotions, but also the contextual data will tell you what actually happened, meaning shopping cart sums or type of issue that has been why the customer has contacted your customer support, for instance, etc., etc. So it's always the matter of getting the right emotion to the right context as well. And what we have kind of like come to realize up until this point is, of course, okay, what is the impact on my business? So we talk about emotions and understanding them, but it also needs to have some level of business impact. And the short and sweet kind of like main finding, the hypothesis we've been testing is that by optimizing, by growing your EVI, emotional value index score, you will eventually grow sales. It's simple. And kind of like how you can drill down and understand that score is, of course, that there's a lot of different elements in the different stages in the journey, in the different parts of the experience, whether it's pre-purchase or purchase or customer support, biannual surveys, whatever. There's always the few key elements that essentially describe what EVI is built from. And now here comes kind of like the big thing compared to NPS again, is that NPS covers approximately 1/3 of the entire experience. But with EVI, with emotional understanding, you'll cover the whole thing. And the main elements that are included in a, let's say, your higher EVI score or lower EVI score is, of course, things like recommending. That's where the loyalty aspect comes in. Checkout experience. That's where customer effort score comes in. Satisfaction for the product. That's the CSAT. If you're familiar with the CX KPIs from the past. Service given to the customer, 1/6 of the effect. So it kind of like includes a lot of these different elements that help us understand that what emotions are we awakening, what should we awaken, by understanding what dimensions are also included in the emotion that you awaken in the different parts of the journey. And kind of like the ongoing research and why we talk about this model and methodology on kind of like structurizing the emotional data is that we want to understand how the emotions cover your whole journey and what is the business impact there. For instance, there is a huge impact that we know of already on conversion and basket size. So everyone who's in the business of selling something or providing a service also want to understand how to generate growth, how to generate more sales. But it's kind of like not limited to that either, because you can utilize the same measurement to after purchase stages, whether it's the transactional touch point of customer support or just, let's say, from purchase to delivery to return logistics or something similar. Or if we take the same example into the world of healthcare, for instance, then again, the follow-up treatment plan, for instance, is a good example of after initial, let's call it sales or let's call it initial appointment, what happens after that. And that's usually, where you can like drop the ball because you might not have insight into the customer, but with the help of EVI, understanding also what would then make them return, and buy more from you or use your services more. The data is not wrong here. So essentially, high emotional connection, meaning high EVI score, means that the retention and repurchase rate grew by 25% during the time frame that we have been investigating currently. And predicting customer loyalty, meaning, again, drawing parallels to NPS, it's about 3 times better than NPS. So it kind of takes care of that challenge as well. And the big thing is, of course, we all want to forecast the future. Can emotional understanding and can emotions help us achieve that? Yes, we can also see that over time, understanding how the emotions change, there is some business growth as well. And that's exactly what we want to kind of like, that's the holy grail, to understand that, okay, if we measure and understand the emotions of our customers, we can also see the direction our brand should be taking in a way that it also grows over time. So very exciting things that are going on with EVI, and very good feedback and good experiences coming from our customers, understanding their customers' emotions as well. So it clearly states that emotional understanding is a key to build a strong brand and achieve that long-term business growth as well. So that's the key points from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristian, and Robert. Welcome back on stage as well. Thank you for the very interesting presentations, both of you. And we have already several questions here in the chat that we would like to start tackling now right away as well. And let's then start digging deeper into the customer emotions and sentiment and how to use all this. So first, Kristian, a question about the EVI that you mentioned about the clusters and a little bit about this, that there are 4 clusters and they all have impact on the EVI score. Just quickly, that how is this EVI built then? And there was also a question, for example, that it looks like there is a connection with Maslow's hierarchy. So a little bit about the theoretical base as well behind there. So how was that built, and how is the score calculated? Just shortly.
Yeah, very good questions. And of course, as we're limited on time, we couldn't go into the details. And if you talk about the first question first, so I'm happy that we kind of get to talk about the clusters, because that's the important part here. So when we're talking about an index, we're also talking about scores. So we need to give values to specific emotions or specific clusters. And of course, even though EVI is not linear, it also means that, let's say, a frustrated emotion has a different score than an enthusiastic, which are 2 emotions that are found in EVI. Frustrated and exciting, or enthusiastic, sorry, are of course part of different clusters. And the different clusters have different numerical values. Frustrated would have a value of -1, and enthusiastic would have a value of +1. And this is how the cluster system is built, that the different clusters have values ranging from -1 to +1. And then using a very straightforward, easy to understand formula, you kind of like calculate the overall emotions you have, and calculate out your EVI score, which is between -1 or -100 and +100. And of course, again, a bit similar to NPS, the score you get is essentially, of course, there's always good scores, right? But it's a matter of benchmarking towards your own other parts of your journey, other customer segments in your own line of business, or benchmarking towards your competitors. So it gives you an indication that, on what level should we be. Very similar to NPS. In a sense that, a number is a number, but what emotions, what clusters do you want your customers to be in? That's the key there. And those have a value that you can then track over time to see how it trends. And very briefly on the Maslow hierarchy, not per se. It's not kind of like per se connected to that. There's actually Plotnick's wheel of emotions is one of the underlying theory. And there's a lot of other research that has been done based on emotional understanding. And probably we will anyway share a bit of EVI information after the webinar. So there's also the description of the underlying theory.
Yes, absolutely.
But not directly. Yeah.
And everybody, you will receive a follow-up email after this webinar, and there are links if you feel interested in the topic and would like to dig deeper into it. You can do it then. And let's move forward. There are a couple of questions about the emotions and how to use and how to measure emotions specifically as well. And I would actually like to take next question right now, first to Kristian, and then afterward to Robert. Let's move on to Robert then as well. But first to Kristian, one more question. That, well, we know that emotions vary a lot based on day, based on mood. Bad morning creates bad emotions, and all day feels ruined. So is the emotional experience data actually reliable? How to ensure the reliability of the emotional experience data, and how to ensure that it's not impacted by just daily mood, you know?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And of course, if we think about ourselves as consumers or users of service, there's always some external impact into what kind of actions we take, what we end up doing, for instance. I would kind of like, there's kind of like not a very definite or clear way to understand all the external factors that can impact your emotion. But the thing here is, which was also a question here, when you contextualize the data and what Robert was talking about, you need to get as much kind of like, let's call it background information about what is happening when you're giving that emotional data. How much did you end up buying? What products did you use? What was your waiting time, for instance, if you're waiting for an appointment and give feedback after it? So you can take those background dimensions and then contextualize it, that the impact we feel that has a strong, or the thing that we feel that has a strong impact on the customer emotion is, for instance, how clean was the waiting room? How long did you have to wait for actually getting into your doctor's office or something similar? So when you contextualize it and use the things that are happening around you, you start generating better understanding. And now also to kind of like combine now what Robert was talking about with Zendesk, is that the interesting part is that EBI is not measured alone. There's always some other KPIs, but there's always open feedback as well. So Robert was talking about understanding the messages, the open feedback, and everything else. So what happens when you give a EBI score that is very positive, but then your open feedback, the things you say in your open words, the unstructured, is very negative? You know, it's very interesting, but that's why you need to understand the context always, that what has happened or what is happening while you're giving
And
that
right away
feedback.
came to mind that the EVI question itself is, how do you feel about something specific? It's not how do you feel today? What's your mood today? How do you feel about or toward product selection, purchasing process? So it's very specific. But let's move on to questions to Robert, and connected to the data. Then Robert, what data is used for customer sentiment analysis? Like automation and the AI, like how does that work? What data is used there, and how to ensure the reliability of this?
Yeah, good question. The approach that we have to this topic is that we want to deliver value right from the start. So what we did is that we have an industry-based rollout, starting with e-commerce, retail, fintech, and more industries to follow. Training our models based on a huge amount of data within that industry, so industry-specific training, plus also customer-specific information, then to really make sure that both intent and sentiment is recognized for each industry-specific, as obviously huge differences in between different businesses, different type of industries, B2C, B2B, all of that. So there's that's our approach to making sure that whatever is recognized is specific to your use case. That's our approach to immediately provide value. And I saw a question earlier also in regards to, doesn't it incentivize to use emotional language? I think it's a good question. I think one of the risks that we could potentially see, but I think I wouldn't purely prioritize just on the sentiment that you recognize. always in combination with other things. That could be, for example, if you have customer segmentation, you have your VIP customers, you have your premium customers, and so on. That combined with the intent, with the sentiment, and then finding a way for your specific use case how to route and prioritize tickets and requests. That would be my advice. Not only using sentimental data, of course, because as you said, there's a risk that customers might only write in caps and with 5 exclamation marks, of course, and use very negative sentiment. But yeah, it's a very good question. I think that's also something that it's definitely still something that is open to find the perfect balance, I think.
Very interesting. Actually, I think that one of the key takeaways for our audience could be from here that, as you see, both speakers right now are emphasizing that you need other data in addition to the emotions data. Always do you see the context, and I believe that this is something that's in CX in general as well. It's never just one feedback row that you read. You always need that context and bigger picture behind there, and that's of course possible when you have data and benchmarking data and AI help to generate extra data even to help out with this. So really interesting. And so what is this data that this emotions data could be mixed with, analyzed together with, that you would suggest? So Kristian, I guess it could be called metadata, and what metadata you would suggest to use together with EVI? You have mentioned a little bit already, but let's emphasize now what could be the main ones.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics, and something we discuss a lot with our customers as well. And the favorite answer everyone always looks for is it depends. But let's take an example. Let's take a situation where you have just ended up purchasing something from a e-com store, right? Let's say that we want to understand how did we actually fare during the purchasing process. Okay, inside is you already ended up buying something. That's good, because that's the goal. But to understand, what other metadata points or context you can add there, normal things to add there is, of course, the purchase order ID, for instance, might be location from where you purchased it. It might be, of course, your customer ID can be one thing. Product information. So if you want to really tie it back to specific products. And it can be also things like how many pages did you visit before you purchased. So there's a lot of things, and it's what we call the embarrassment of riches. There's so much things, so you need to understand what is the best data sources you want to enrich with in order to make it support your business and that specific touch point the best. But that's also what we do a lot with our customers, that we have kind of like, let's call it best in practice, kind of like frameworks that in these particular places, this is what usually is used and should be used to generate the insight. And at the end of the day, it's then just iterating that core based on your brand, your industry, your size, and your business processes.
And the same question to Robert then, but while you're answering that, how and what data you would enrich your or like customer sentiment or emotions data with to best conclusions, then I would like to share with the audience that you can also book a free CX assessment where actually our professionals from Zendesk and Feedbackly can help to evaluate that how your business can measure emotions, or does it make sense at all for your business? It can be that no, it's also an option, it's fine, but it can be that it can be a powerful tool for you, and so just check it out, and you can write there also that what are the questions that you would still like us to answer at this meeting. But Robert, then a final question to you then as well, that what would be the data that you would analyze the emotions or sentiment data together with?
Yeah, and just one addition to what Kristian also said, I think it will also be interesting to look at if you take the example of purchasing something, being in the shop, and then also measuring the EI on how long does the customer spend on your website and on different pages. Are they maybe looking for information and takes them too long, or is it that they are very interested in multiple different products and so on? So I think that would be one addition to what Kristian just said. But I think in general, when we look at how you can use the sentimental data in your team to automate things, it's basically an enhancement what you're currently already doing. So if you already have some kind of routing and prioritization in your setup already established, it's basically another layer that you can add. So I know that some of my customers, they route tickets and prioritize tickets on very specific details about their products and service, the impact it has, the severity of the ticket or the request or the issue they are raising. So it's not like it would replace your current kind of thinking or your current processes. It's more like an enhancement to it that you can use to fine tune it even more, to be more specific and really make sure that you avoid those negative experiences while also, capitalizing on the positive.
All right,
ones.
very good. But we have now run out of time as well. We have a bunch of questions here that we couldn't answer right now during this live webinar, but we will contact you, every single one separately, to make sure that everybody gets answers to their questions. And if you have any questions, would like to talk about how to measure emotions and customer sentiment and use all this data, then just check out this meeting opportunity as well. I guess nothing to lose, but thank you, Robert. Thank you, Kristian, for really good discussions today. And the topic, we could go on with that hours, I guess, but unfortunately we need to sum it up for today.
Thank you, and thanks for everyone attending as well. It was really very good questions. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody all around the globe. And see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.